Hey there, Chad here. Thanks for joining me. This is Aurora 4X, and this is my Complete Beginner's Guide. I am a complete beginner, and I have learned a lot about the game over the last several weeks, and I'd like to help others that want to get into this one. So here we go. We've covered a lot of materials so far, some of it really useful, some of it more long-term, and things that I'm like, I wonder how that's going to work, and then it gets on my mind, and then I never, I got distracted until I figured out how they worked. And so I'm trying to kind of help cover some of that. We're trying to skip things that we really don't need to know about for a while. And in the meantime, we've started some research. We're waiting for the trans-Newtonian elements, I think, or technology to be researched. It's the big one. Once that's done, it opens a floodgate of other things we're going to need to do. And we have about a year, just over a year before that's done. So we're going to continue to let that roll. But one other thing we can do is set up. And in the previous episode, we talked about ground units, and that is really premature. You don't need ground units for a very, very long time. But I felt like it was something to touch on because it helps explain how some of the systems work. Let's also look at fleet management. And this one is fun as well. There's a couple of interesting ways to approach the fleet management, and you're going to eventually have very large fleets. So you're going to want to know how to run those. Ground units and fleets are all managed by commanders. We have naval commanders and we have ground force commanders, and they have various ranks, and those ranks are important. So I want to talk about the individual military folks briefly to kind of give an idea of what we're looking at. So first, let's look at these admirals. We're going to look at Monty here. We're going to click on him, and we'll see he's been around for more than 30 years because he has his 30-year ribbon. We see what his abilities are. We see he has some attributes. I don't know how these impact the game. I don't even know if they're wired up, but it does tell you a couple of things, and I think that's interesting. We see that he is 58 years old. He's in excellent health. He was commissioned on the 10th of January, 2014, which is well before our game started. In fact, that's like 36 years before our game started. So he should have his 30-year ribbon, shouldn't he? Their rank determines how likely they are to retire, by the way. Majors in the ground and lieutenant commanders in the fleet, they will retire much sooner. And that's a reason to make sure that you continue to promote people. The game does not do any kind of auto promotion. It is entirely up to you. And that can be important to kind of understand. We're going to talk about that a little bit briefly today. What I want to show you, though, is this right here, this promotion score. Each of these ribbons had a promotion score that was attached to it when he earned them, and those are added to his total, and that makes up what his promotion score is. The game adds values to this as well, and it will add them for things like being assigned to command a fleet or a ship or things like that. And this is a way to kind of judge who is in the meritocracy of things, who is higher up on the ladder than others. There is an option when you're setting up your game to tell it to take political expertise into account. So basically, you can have political assignments is what it comes down to. Folks that get their job not because they're the best admiral, but because they're politically connected. I did not choose to turn that on in this particular game, but you're welcome to do that. I haven't seen a huge impact in it. And that it is what it is. Let's talk about some of the promotion stuff because I found this to be, I feel like it's super important and it was kind of complex to understand. When we're setting up things, there is a hierarchy. We cannot have a lieutenant commander running a fleet with an admiral running a ship in that fleet. It won't let you do that. There is the hierarchy. You have to maintain the hierarchy. There is nothing wrong with taking this lieutenant commander right here, the very bottom of things, arguably the least experienced person in the fleet, although maybe not. There could be people with lower numbers, and there can be people with much higher numbers. There's 173, 134. This guy is really low. There is no penalty for me to promote him 6 times, hitting the promote button each time, all the way up the chain of command to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would put him at admiral. 7 times to get to fleet admiral. There's no penalty for that. But from a role-playing perspective and whatnot, It just isn't really common, right? You don't see that happen. Admirals become fleet admirals. Vice admirals become admirals. You can do that if you need to or want to for a particular reason. There could be somebody in here who has a 50 for logistics, and you really, 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 really want them to run your logistics command. And you could promote them up to the point where they're at a level that makes sense to do that. The fun thing is you kind of get to decide what these numbers mean. They don't have a fixed meaning. The system uses the numbers to decide if you have automated, is it promotion? Let's see what that's called. We click over here. If we have automated assignment for admin command, if we have that turned on for the fleet guys, the ground units have a similar button and the scientists have a similar button. When you assign that, if somebody dies or leaves the command for whatever reason, they retire and it needs to backfill, it will take basically it takes the person with the highest score is what I'm assuming it does. If there's nobody at its current level, at the necessary level, it'll look down one level. So if we had something that required an admiral, it would grab one of the vice admirals potentially and promote them up. And I think it uses that score to determine who that's going to be. That's what it's about. But you get to decide how to use this, really. What I'm going to do right now is we're going to do some promotions. My very first playthrough where I was learning went really well, but one thing that kept happening is I only had captains, commanders, and lieutenant commanders, and I couldn't figure out why that was happening. Well, the reason was everybody else was retiring because it'll take 15 years to get to something useful in the game as you're going through. And I didn't like that. So I pay more attention to this than a lot of players. A lot of the guys are basically saying, I just check the box, automated assignments, and I'm done. Boom, right there. There's the box. It's on this screen here. I'm done. I don't have to mess with it at all. It'll deal with it. And it does, but I like to have a little more control about it. And it's one of the cool things I think about the game. So that's why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. What I'm going to do is start at the top here with admirals, and we're going to decide who to promote up to fleet admiral. Now, there's nothing that prevents us from promoting them both. And in fact, in the long run, we probably want at least a couple of fleet admirals and admirals. Maybe not fleet admirals. I think we want one of those, but you could have more. And what I've done is I've had a fleet admiral that's in charge of the overall structure, and then a fleet admiral that's over what would that be? The naval structure, which you build out. You get to decide what that looks like. So let's go ahead and do exactly that. I'm looking at these numbers for your top level person. I don't know what even makes the most sense. I would say that crew training might be important. What are her numbers? She's got a 30 for crew training. That's not nothing. Maybe we'll go with Anna. We're going to promote Anna up. We're just going to basically say promote. Boom. And as you see, it inserts a record. Promoted to fleet admiral. She's now at the fleet admiral level. Now, one thing that doesn't happen is it doesn't update the counts. You have to close the window and come back in for that to happen. Just be, advised. It's not a huge issue, but there you have it. What I'm going to do is go ahead and promote one or two folks from each of the ranks to the next rank up. So we just promoted a fleet admiral, and we're now going to promote somebody to admiral. And again, just looking at the points, 3,200, 2,100, 2,100. It looks like Kareem is the person who's going to get promoted. Now, you could look at these numbers too and decide what makes the most sense. I'm not terribly concerned about that today. We're just going to base it on promotion score. Congratulations, Kareem, you've been promoted. We're going to go from rear admiral to vice admiral. We have a 2,100, 2,100, 2,100. They're all 2,100s except for Stanford, 13. And then we have Terry, who is a 2,000. Nothing prevents me from promoting Stanford. Nothing at all. In fact, if he has much better numbers than those other guys, and frankly, you could argue that he does have better numbers than some of them, you might want to promote him. I'm going to go ahead and do it based on their points for the most part. And we're going to promote anybody. Well, we're going to promote the top two that are we're going to promote two people at 2,100 or above. So we're going to promote, that is Sharon gets promoted. And then we're going to promote Trey. Congratulations. They've both been promoted. Then we're going to go to Those were rear admirals promoted. No, I'm sorry. Those were vice admirals promoted to rear admirals. No, those were rear admirals promoted to vice admiral. That's what we just did. Sorry. So we're going to come down here to lower half rear admirals. We're going to do exactly the same thing. Now you'll notice these numbers are a little lower, 1,300. There's an 18. That's a possible one to do. Another 18. I'm going to promote those two 18s and the 17 here. So we're going to promote 3 folks up. And again, it's completely arbitrary. I'm choosing to base it on their promotion scores. So we're going to promote that one. We're going to promote that one. And we're going to promote that one. Okay, there we go. And then finally we'll do, well, not finally, we'll do some captains. These numbers run in the 1,000 range for the higher end. And that does look like that's it. So we'll just take the first few that have at least 1,000 points. We'll do 3 of these guys. So we're going to promote Dave. Now, Dave doesn't have a whole lot to offer over here. That's something to keep in mind, but that's okay. We're going to promote Dave. We're going to promote Bertha. And we're going to promote Norma. We have promoted a whole lot of women here, haven't we? Okay, and then finally, well, I said it again. It's not finally. We got 2 more levels to go. So we're going to promote some commanders to captain. These should probably be like in the 700 range, I think. And as you can see, this is actually all over the place, down to, I think there was one in the 300s. Maybe it was 400s, and we have them in the 900s. So we're going to promote the 900. Oops, come on. Yeah, you have to click back up here. I forgot about that. There's an 892. That's a pretty good number. Maybe we go with that guy. Yeah, we'll do the 800s. So if they're at least 800, we'll promote them. We'll just do a few of them, though. We don't have to do everybody. Promote. There's an 860, 859, maybe one more. There we go. Okay. Now you'll notice, so that's what we're going to do. And then we'll do the same with Lieutenant Commander here in just a moment. But you'll notice there's a few names here that are a different color. And if we click on them, what we will see is they have poor health. Sometimes they'll have an entry over here that says suffered an illness that impacted their long-term health. One way to call the force is anybody who is ill, you just have them retire. And you just click retire and they are moved down to here. We'll see that we've actually had a couple of people retire already. All commanders, actually one lieutenant colonel has retired on the other side of things. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Let's go ahead and promote a couple of lieutenant commanders, and these should be like in the mid hundreds. Looks like 300 is about typical for the high end. So we'll grab 2 or 3 of these and bump them up. Now, lieutenant commanders, when they get their first ship, they're going to get a lot of points pretty quickly. It's just kind of the way the game works. So all of a sudden you'll have lieutenant commanders, because the game doesn't promote anybody on its own. You'll have lieutenant commanders with 1,200 points, way ahead of all the commanders. And you do want to be mindful of that. But again, the game doesn't penalize that kind of thing. I could take Trey here. I could move him all the way to the top of the structure. It doesn't care. I just like the role-playing aspect of it a little more. And so I'm willing to take the few minutes to do that. There you have it. Let's do 1 or 2 more. There's one. And then we would also do this with the military side, the ground unit side. I'm going to forgo that for now. I might do it on my own. Oops. That guy just got promoted twice. You'll notice, same day, promoted to commander and then promoted to captain. So I might want to take a look at Vera here and say, you know what, you should have been demoted 1. That was a misclick. I'll know it. It won't go in her permanent file or anything. You can set somebody to do not promote. I'm assuming it means that the computer won't promote them on its own, and I have no idea what story character does. I am assuming that that kind of makes that person a little more important, more likely to be bumped up or something like that. You can rename folks. We can rename Vera to something completely different if we want. If you want to put in your best friend or whatever, that is perfectly fine. Okay, let's get a couple of other things in here. So we talked about the folks. Let's talk about the fleet. We're going to go here. This is the fleet button. This is our naval organization. And as we can see, we have no fleet commander. Okay. This is one of those things where this screen is not intuitive at all compared to how some of the other ones worked. We just were in this screen and it kind of makes some sense once you've played with it a little bit. This one works slightly differently, and I didn't even catch this right away. What we want to note is right now there is one command. So you have commands and you have fleets, okay? And we can delete most of these fleets. You must have one fleet. There has to be one fleet available, but we could delete the rest of these. I'm going to delete all of them but shipyard because I want to rename them myself for what they're doing specifically. And while colony fleet is fairly specific, I'm going to want mine to say Luna Colony Fleet. And then when it moves on to being a Martian colony fleet, we'll change the name. But if I have a Luna and a Martian at the same time, I want them to be separate fleets and potentially separate commands, depending on what I'm doing. Commands and fleets are structures. You issue orders to fleets, but commands kind of organize the groupings. You can nest them as deep as you want in this game, which is kind of fantastic. And what that allows you to do is have a whole series of layers and levels of a hierarchy, and it gives you the ability to assign more folks. And as you can see, we have, a couple hundred naval commanders sitting out here, pretty close, and nothing to do. We're not going to build this a couple hundred deep. We might build it a couple deep, and that's fine. We'll get that started right now. What we want to do is put somebody in charge of the entire fleet. Well, it makes sense that should be our top admiral, right? Should be this person here, Anna. Okay? But it says it can be a commander. So if I come over here and say auto assign or assign an admin commander, it's just going to pick the first person it thinks is the best. The other thing I can do, though, is I can tell it that this is my most important command by giving it a 1. I can also do automate it, although as soon as I hit an advanced button, it'll pop somebody in there that I maybe don't want. So what I'm going to do here is we are going to change the necessary rank from commander. The way we do that is this minimum rank right here. We're going to come down here and we're going to say fleet admiral. That now has to be filled by a fleet admiral. So if we advance and we have this button clicked, it's going to put a fleet admiral in there. If there is no available fleet admiral, it'll grab an admiral and promote them. If there is no admiral, then I don't know what it's going to do for us. My understanding is it will only go down one level. Okay, so these two screens kind of work in concert. This is our fleet organization, and we have the ability to put in a fleet admiral here. I'm going to also want, and we're going to call it the expedition command. And what that is going to be is a survey command. That's going to be our first set of ships will be survey ships. And they are going to go around and survey planets and asteroids and things to see where they can find minerals. We're going to click on this survey. You'll notice it says gen. That means that this is a general command. We're going to set a survey command. It'll say SRV, and we're going to say create command. We want to be on the one that it's going to attach to right there. And there you have it. We have a name. We give it a name. I'm going to call it the Sol Expeditionary Command. Give it whatever name you want. Survey command serves perfectly well. There's nothing wrong with that. And there we go. It is now in the structure under the general fleet. Okay. I don't believe you can have more than one of these top levels. I don't know. Is there a way to bust this out? I don't think there is. Doesn't look like it. Yeah. So that you will always have the one trunk, right? And then everything else is branches off of that. This is a civilian one. We're going to get rid of that. And then we have this fleet. This fleet currently reports directly to the top of the chain as well, but we can drag that fleet and drop it in Sol. And now that shipyard fleet will be in the Expeditionary Command. The Sol Expeditionary Command has one fleet in it. That's the shipyard command. We don't need to do that right now. We're going to go ahead and leave that as general. And what I will eventually do is have like a staged command where it's like basic training. It's the training they get right in out of the, when they come right out of the academy, we put them on a ship and they're in that command for a while and they'll earn some points that way, things like that. But for now, that's what we're going to do. Now, the other thing is you'll notice that this is a first tier command off of the one that reports to a fleet admiral. It also says commander. We're going to want to bump that up. Now, I don't know that we need to make it a full admiral, but we probably want to go to at least vice admiral for this one. So we're going to tell it it's going to need to assign a vice admiral. And you'll also notice, nope, never mind, forget I said that. It does change the command priority. I want to make this one a 3. It's an important command, but it's not crucial. It will initially be crucial, but it quickly will be less and less important, and we'll have other things we want to do. So now we have 2 levels of command. Now what happens is we're going to assign commanders here, and their abilities will carry down through the hierarchy to influence the abilities of the ships, specifically in things like logistics. It will speed up the process. Survey, it'll speed up the process. Reaction is how well they respond to adversity, specifically to contacts that are coming in that are enemy. Things like that. Okay, again, we could hit just assign and it will give us somebody, but the other way to do it, we're going to come back over here because you really want to learn how to use this screen because it's pretty powerful. And so we're going to be revisiting this a few times. We've got all of our naval commanders here. Clearly we have the fleet, and we also know that we need at least a vice admiral for this other role. And we're going to also open lieutenant commander. Okay, that was an overkill. Let's go with captains. All right. So we're going to want to see what those possible roles that somebody could fill are. And right now it isn't bringing anything up because we don't have anybody selected. We need to select a person, and then it'll show what they're eligible for, and then we can start to mess around with this. So what we're going to do is go to we're going to go to Naval Admin Commands. Now, these are not fleet. These are not like commanding officers of fleets. They're not fleet commanders and things like that. This is the command structure where the fleets report to. And we've created 2. We have the top level one, United Federation of Systems Navy, and we have the Expeditionary Force that we are putting together. And there you have it. Those 2 are now listed there. We know this needs a fleet admiral. One way to accomplish that is we could set this to, we'll do admiral, because an admiral could be promoted into that position, and it would show us anybody who's eligible, gives us their rank and their ability in crew training. Well, we might also want, I don't know, maybe logistics. And of course, you got to click, I did click logistics. So there you have it. That's kind of how that would potentially work. Okay, if we were to, and we can select from this list or we can select from over here. If we were to try to assign a captain into this role, which requires a fleet admiral, and we say assign, we'll get a message. The rank of Linwood Barbaron is too low for this assignment. In other words, they can't do that assignment. It's because their rank is too low. We have to have a fleet admiral for this. Now, I think we can put an admiral in. It would be okay with that. I don't really want to mess with that right now. You're welcome to try it on your own. We're going to go ahead and just put Anna into that position, and we're going to assign her. Of course, you click her, you click the assignment, and then you click assign. Boom, there it goes. You'll notice now it says that she's been promoted to Fleet Admiral, and she's assigned to the United Federation of Systems Navy. Well, that is the top level command. We could probably change that command name, honestly. That might make a little more sense. Rename. And we'll simplify it. We'll make it USF Navy Command so that it's not a mile long. There we go. Okay, so now the name is a little bit more easily recognizable. When we come back over here, it's not going to update until we close this and reopen that. But now, if we come up here and look at the Fleet Admiral, and we come down here to Admin Commands, USF Navy Command. Now, the colors mean whether or not they're occupied or not, or assigned. I don't like that you can't click here and see who is assigned to it. It doesn't do that for you. Don't like that. But if you click on the person, you can see what they're assigned to up here. So Anna, she's assigned to Administrative Command, USF Navy Command. There we go. Awesome. Secondly, we want a Vice Admiral or better. to be in charge of the Expeditionary Command. Now, this is one where we are going to do some sorting. We're going to look at all of our upper rear admirals and above, and we are going to look specifically at their survey skill. And that's the first number here. Rear Admiral Perla Petros has the best value for that. She's a 25. When we're ready to survey, she will apply 25% bonus to the survey ships in her command. Basically, that's how it works. I think there's a little bit of math that happens in there depending on how deep the hierarchy is, things like that. But as a rule of thumb, that's what you're looking at. She will apply a bonus. She will apply specifically her survey bonus to the survey command. So we're going to assign her. She's only a rear admiral. It needs to be a vice admiral. So we're going to find out right now if it will auto promote her or not. I do not know if it will. And we're going to assign. She is too low for the assignment. So that's too bad. She can't do it. Now, we did just promote her today, even. We could go ahead and do it again and assign her, and it makes some sense. But let's see if any of the other folks. Yeah, this one is already a rear admiral. We can't promote her by clicking it. It'll do the same thing, right? Say she's, oh, we have to assign it. Come on, Chad, you know better. Assign, too low. But if we promote her and then assign her, it'll take her, and that'll be fine. I think instead of doing that, what I want to do is select that vice admiral that's at the top of the list too, Lucius Ronta. We're going to go ahead and assign Lucius to this command. He is already a vice admiral, and it requires a vice admiral, and we're going to assign him. And there it is. Boom. When we come back out to this screen, you'll notice it here it says Fleet Admiral Anna Garbett. And if we click on this one, it says Vice Admiral Lucius Ronta. Okay, we will build out a hierarchy over time. Right now, this is really all we're going to need. We probably will want to add Sol Survey, whoops, spell it right, Survey Fleet. You know, something like that. And that makes sense. This would be the fleet that reports to her, and they will, you know, do the work under her. We will assign a CO to the ship, things like that. So that's how this works. Okay, we're going to close this one down, and we're going to go ahead and just advance. Don't know how far it's going to go. It went a while. Okay, so here we're seeing that a science project completed, and it was the Basic Infantry Headquarters. As we recall, we lined up a bunch of those. Notice there's two lines here. First of all, congratulations to Roland. They received their medal for completing their first research project. Yay. That research project was this one, which was Basic Infantry Headquarters Company. And then the last line says they have begun research into Basic Infantry Light. So we don't have to go reassign research because it automatically pulled that one up because Roland was assigned to it. And it will continue to do that if we advance again. That one went pretty quickly. Basic Standard Infantry is done. And we do it again. Roland completed yet another one. Here's one where experience improved for somebody. Commander Felicia McGrain had an increase of 5% in her mining bonus. So her mining is now at 5%. It was at 0. We will see that periodically, and that's great. That's those things that I was mentioning where people will automatically improve their abilities now and again. We would like to see our scientists doing that a lot, but you know, it is what it is. We'll get there. Going to go ahead and run this a couple more times. There he completed infantry heavy, and he is starting on mortar. Real quick, I want to go look at him in the commander screen, and we'll come down here to ground. I never find it when I'm looking for it. There it is. We can see that he has completed 4 research projects. That's great. He's generated 110 points. That's great. His abilities haven't changed at all, but that's okay. And here is when he was awarded that ribbon. There you go. That's all fantastic. Here's what I want you to see, though. We're going to go one more time. And a science team led by Roland has finished its work on infantry mortar, and it's now starting on headquarters battalion. That is all perfect. Notice the line above it. Roland Collie awarded the significant science contribution based on the condition, completed 5 research projects. Congratulations, Roland. But if we go look at him again, ground combat is at the bottom. He now has 2 ribbons. It assigned that ribbon for him on its own. Okay, again, I love that part of the game. Some people are like, you're a moron. And yeah, that might be true, but I just think that's a lot of fun. I like that about it a lot. We've talked about command structure inside of your fleet. We will continue to build that out, but we kind of learned the basic building blocks of how that'll work. We can see that there's a hierarchy, and we can continue to make a hierarchy. Just for fun, let me show you what a more complete one looks like, and then we will end this episode. So let's save right there. Did I do that? I did. Let's open a different game. You'll notice that everything looks a little different now. We're in a different system and all that stuff. As I said, I'm basically just to where I'm starting to jump out in my main playthrough. What I want you to see, though, is what a more rigorous structure might look like. So here we go. I am going to turn off the civvies. I have a general fleet at the top with a fleet admiral. I have a naval command with a fleet admiral. I have a logistics command with an admiral. I have a logistics command under that with a vice admiral. You'll notice one is for colonization and one is for general logistics, or freighters, basically. Under there, I have yet another. This might be a little too deep. That might be a little deeper than I needed. I had a reason for doing this at one point, but I did reorg and I didn't clean this up. So do know that there was a reason I went that deep. It wasn't meant to just be for no reason at all. But again, you can see you can build these as deep as you want. I have a reserve command. This is where I put ships that I don't need right now. You will have ships that need to be mothballed, but I don't believe there's any kind of mothball capability. So what I do is I toss them into this guy and put them in the training. And I have a couple of people assigned to that. They're getting promotion points because they have an active assignment, and that's great. And their abilities will go up and things like that. The parking fleet I kind of use for new ships moving in there that don't need any training. Pardon me, folks. Sorry about that. And I have a reserve active fleet, and that's where I put a couple of ships that are kind of through the training part. Don't need to worry about that at all. And are otherwise being maintained and held ready for orders if they're needed. That is a more advanced one and what it will look like. Just for fun, because we're already over 30 minutes, so what's 34 minutes going to be? We'll look at the ground units that I have. As I mentioned, I have only put together a brigade so far. Here's a brigade. It has, actually, it doesn't even have the 2 rifles in it now that I look at. Oh, maybe it does. I'm sorry. Yep. See, I'm still a beginner too. So my brigade headquarters has a rifle battalion, a 2nd rifle battalion. Then there is this exploratory battalion that actually I think what my intent was for these geosurvey guys to be in there. But it turned out I didn't need any of the geosurvey guys. So I think that's why I pulled them out. I was trying to figure out if I needed to use them differently. So on Earth, I have a brigade and a battalion. On Luna, I have a policing force. And while it has a battalion headquarters, it's actually just made up of various militia groups, is what I'm calling them. And I have it as a battalion for now because I intend, as I have other colonies that need them, I'm going to move them to there. That's why they're there. So, okay. I think that's going to cover it for today. Thanks for joining me. This has been Aurora 4X. We're still in the learning phases. This complete beginner's guide will continue in the next episode. I hope that you'll hang around for that. And until next time, fair travels.